Rama Hare Hare Sachinandana Nitai Sachinandana Nitai Sachinandana Gaura Hari Jaya Nitai Sachinandana Nitai Sachinandana Nitai Sachinandana Gaura Hari Shama Sundar Radha Shama Sundar Radha Shama Sundar Shri Radhe Radha Shama Sundar Radha Shama Sundar Shri Radhe Jai Radha Madhava Radha Madhava Radha Madhava Shri Radhe Jaya Prabhupada, 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 Srila Prabhupada. Jaya Jaya Prabhupada, 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 Srila Prabhupada. Jaya Jaya Gurudev, 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 Srila Gurudev. Jaya Jaya Gurudev, 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 Srila Gurudev. Nitai Gaura Hari Bol, Hari Bol, Hari Bol, Nitai Gaura Hari Bol. Nitai Gaura Hari Bol, Hari Bol, Hari Bol, Gaura Hari Bol. Shri Nitai Saranagati Bhagwan ki jai. Shri Radha Shyam Sundar ji ki jai. Shri Prabhupada ki jai. Shri Gurudev ki jai. Nitai Gaura Premanande.
Hare Krishna. Hare Krishna.
Hare Krishna.
Hare Krishna.
Hare Krishna.
Krishna Krishna.
Krishna Krishna.
Hare Hare.
Hare Hare.
Hare Rama.
Hare Rama.
Hare Rama.
Hare Rama.
Rama Rama.
Rama Rama.
Hare Hare.
Hare Hare.
So just a quick request, humble request. So please come, everyone, if you can come yourself too. If everyone can come forward, because more devotees will come later, and so they'll need space. Nobody should block that door or this door, because by regulation we have to keep that open pathway. Please come as close as you can. If you need the wall or the pews for support, then that's fine. But everybody else, come close. So we're very happy to have you all here for a continuation of our seminar that we've been having with His Holiness Romapada Swami Maharaj. Most of you know Maharaj, so I'll just keep introduction very short. Maharaj is a disciple of His Divine Grace Srila A.C. Bhaktivedanta Swami Prabhupada, founder Acharya of International Society for Krishna Consciousness. Maharaj has been spreading the message of Krishna consciousness as imbibed from Srila Prabhupada by personal instruction as well as by instruction through his writings and lectures for over 50 years and has been traveling around the world speaking Krishna Katha and trying to associate with devotees in a very genuine, personal manner. Maharaj is known for his saintly qualities and his erudition and his desire to really connect with people on a one-on-one level. So please take advantage and listen sincerely to the divine instructions of Sri Ramayan as exemplified by all the amazing pure devotees in that pastime. His Holiness Romapada Swami Maharaj ki jai. Thai Gaur Premanandi. Hari Hari Bol. Closer to, please.
Nama Om Vishnupadaya Krishna Prasthaya Bhutale Shrimate Bhaktivedanta Swami Iti Namine Namaste Saraswate Deve Gauravani Pracharine Nirvishesha Sunyavadi Paschatya Desatarine Jaya Sri Krishna Chaitanya Prabhu Nityananda Shri Advaita Gadadhar Shivasat Gaura Bhaktavrinda Hare Krishna 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 Hare 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 Rama Rama Rama. During this visit to Portland, the topic has been lessons from Ramayana. It's been a nice journey. There's been lots of questions. And since I'm much more familiar with Bhagavad Gita and Srimad Bhagavatam, I kind of struck out when it came to the discussion parts. But I've done a lot of research while here, and a question came yesterday that was researched a little bit over since yesterday evening. There's a section of the concluding portion of Valmiki Ramayana from the Uttarakanda section where there's series of events of things that happened when people came to see the king, because it was part of the procedure of kings, that if there's anybody had a problem, they could come and lodge their, not complaint, but let the king know that they had a problem and they're looking for a solution to the problem. So different topics. On the topic of Shatrughna, some Chavana Muni came and said, there's a man eating Rakshasa, powerful ruler in our vicinity, and he has been killing and devouring rishis. Help. So Shatrughna went and more than helped. He finished Lavanasura. It was an interesting episode. And then ruled there for 12 years and so forth. But there, in the course of all of that, there was different examples. So one of the different examples was a elderly Brahmana came carrying the body of his teenage son in his arms and said, "My son died before I, the father, died, and this irregularly never happened before. So please do something. I want my son back." And so Ram consulted his advisors, ministers, and one of the persons who happened to be there at that time was Narada Muni. And Narada Muni gave an explanation that there's an unqualified person who is doing severe austerities, and because of the impropriety of those austerities, then he has to be checked, otherwise more irregularities like this will happen. So Ram accepted the instruction. He summoned his Pushpaka Vimana. He went searching here and there. And he found a fellow hanging upside down doing austerities. And he spoke with the man, who are you and what are these austerities and what's the circumstance? And he said, he's a Shudra, the son of such and such, and he's doing austerities. And Ramchandra, without hesitation, pulled his sword and chopped his head off. So we had some lively discussion about that. Like, it's a nice place to start a class on the Sunday program, right? So one of the things was, why did he chop his head off? And then a second is, did he do so because he was a Shudra? And some idea was there in the text that in that age we're not to perform austerities. Although, go back in time a little bit, and what was Valmiki's situation before he was Valmiki? Some of you know a little bit about Ramayana. You know Valmiki, who was the compiler of Ramayana, before he was a lowest class person. And without all the details, he did tapa for a long time, and he became Valmiki. Correct? I don't see anyone doing like this, so I assume it's okay, what I just said. So we didn't bring that up yesterday, but kind of ruled it out, and the overnight voila, or a nice answer, came from, of all persons, Madhvacharya, not one of the Sri Vaishnava commentators, but Madhvacharya. Some of you know who Madhvacharya is. Some of you may not know who Madhvacharya is. On our altar, there's some photographs at the bottom, and that's depicting our disciplic succession. And it accepts the disciplic succession back and back and back goes to Madhvacharya. It goes back further than that too, but Madhvacharya was if not the principal personality that drew together the teachings that made our sampradaya. And Madhvacharya had a very much strong liking for Mahabharata. Is anybody here that needs what Mahabharata is? I don't know. I want to be relatable to the audience. Do you know what Mahabharata is?
A refresher would be nice.
Okay, sure. Mahabharata is a history. Maha means great, and Bharata is the land of India. It's a history of Greater India. It's a history book. And in that history book, there's lots of histories of personalities and events from prior courses of time. And, of course, one of the Mahabharata sections is Bhagavad Gita. That you know. So, along with Bhagavad Gita and that description of Krishna and his activities with the persons of his time, the Pandavas and others, because it's a history, there's a substantial section of Mahabharata where there's discussion about a previous age and the activities of Ramachandra. So, therefore, in Mahabharata, there's a substantial section discussing activities of Ramachandra. And because Madhvacharya really liked, he held in very high esteem Mahabharata. He wrote a commentary, a very well-respected, well-known, much loved by his followers, his commentary, Mahabharata commentary. In his Mahabharata commentary, he gives commentary on this little episode of Ram chopping the head of this particular fellow. And his explanation goes like this. Previously, there's several parts, but this is for those of you that were with us last night and didn't get to read what I'm about to say. Two main things. Ramachandra had already witnessed an unqualified person, namely Ravana, undergoing severe austerities for the purpose of gaining powers to rule the three worlds, upper, middle, and lower planetary systems. That was his target. And he already saw an unqualified person doing tapa, austerity. It had serious consequences if the motivation and the qualification of the person were off. So having experienced the consequences, what Ravana did, he did what he did with this fellow because this fellow had serious problem, like his intention. So the rest of his, another part of his commentary on this, just a little smidgen in Mahabharata, was because this particular fellow that was undergoing austerities had the idea of A and B becoming Lord Shiva, and B becoming the husband of Parvati, which is not possible. Not only he wanted entrance into the heavenly realm, but he wanted to become, but there isn't a duplicate Lord Shiva. It means somehow he's going to replace him. I don't know exactly how that was to happen, but that was his intention. And to become the husband of Parvati. Like cuckoo. And therefore, because the intention behind the austerity, the purpose and consciousness of this fellow was so skewed, he had to be checked. And it's part of the duty of the king. So he did, specifically, according to Madhvacharya, he acted according to Dharma. Because remember what this fellow was doing, Narada said, what this fellow was doing is the reason that a young Brahmana died, and more would happen. So he can't let this cuckoo fellow do these austerities unchecked. He had to check him. Now, why death penalty? Well, that's another question. Death penalty has its place. In the modern world, should there or shouldn't there be capital punishment? That's a big hubbub. And some people say no, and many people say no, and some people say yes, and it's a big issue. In Vedic culture, when there are circumstances when capital punishment is imperative, it's beneficial for the individual because their karma is then relieved by that capital punishment, and those whose lives would be impacted by this person would also be benefited. And therefore it was dharmic for Ramchandra to do what Ramchandra did. He was all-knowing who this fellow is and what he's up to, and it was dharma, it was virtuous. So that was that's from yesterday. So lessons from Ramayana. Like, I probably shouldn't have brought that up because it's a little touchy. Death penalty and chop the guy's head off. So This discussion is Vibhisana's Saranagati. And in case you need a little or like a little background of who is Vibhisana anyway, Saranagati means shelter. Saranagati. Sharana, agati. Sharana, taking shelter. Agati, the means of going to the place of shelter. Shelter, in this case, of Ramachandra. So it's a celebrated topic for those who are lovers and fans of Ramayana. It's a celebrated topic, you'll see, as we go along. So this is a discussion on that topic. Here's a little genealogy. Firstborn living being, Lord Brahma. Brahma, directly from his own body, produced a number of sons. No help from his wife, just many sons, and they were all Brahmanas. One of them was Pulascha. Pulascha Muni, a Brahmana, married the daughter of Trinabindu. And in that combination, Pulascha and the daughter of Trinabindu, there was a highly elevated son born named Vishrava. Vishrava had two wives. The first of the two wives was the daughter of Bharadraj Muni. And he had as a son, or they had as a son, Kuvera. Later he became Kuvera. He was Vaishravana. So Kuvera is one of the devas, or demigods, and so do it backwards. Kuvera was the son of this Brahmana, Vishrava, and Bhardwaj Muni's daughter in marriage. And then Vishrava was the son of Pulascha, who was the son of Brahma. So Kuvera is an important person in Ramayana for many reasons. Now Vishrava, had a second wife. See up there on the left? Vishrava had a second wife. And the second wife was a different type of lady. She wasn't the daughter of a rishi. She was the daughter of a Rakshasa. And the father of Kaikashi was Sumali, the Rakshasa, and he had a wife, Ketu Mati. So Kaikasi was his daughter, and he then recommended to Kaikasi. There's this Brahmana who's like super duper qualified, and if you could have children through him, if you became his wife, it would be very beneficial for our race, our Rakshasa race. And because he's a Brahmana, if you make a request, he may oblige your request. So on the father's prompting, the young unmarried girl, Kaikashi, went to his ashram and stood there silently with her hands folded. Because he's an all-knowing sage, he knew what was in her mind without her speaking it. However, she came at an inappropriate time. She came when he was in the middle of having a yajna. And Brahmins aren't supposed to interrupt their yajna once they start the yajna, or person are not to interrupt the Brahmana who's performing yajna in the middle of the yajna. So she didn't exactly interrupt him, but there she was standing with her palms folded. So he turned his attention away from the yajna and turned his attention to her and said, I know what's in your mind, and I accept your proposal. You'd like us to marry, but because you came at this inappropriate time, I want you to know that the sons that will be born by us or by you will be Rakshasas from the same dynasty that you're from. They become wicked and cruel, Rakshasas. And she went, oh, no, that's not what I want. So the compensation was that the youngest of your sons will be perfectly virtuous. And that one that was perfectly virtuous is in big letters here. His name is Vibhisana. So that's a little bit of genealogy of who Vibhisana's mother and father were. His father was Vishrava, who was celebrated, super qualified person, and his mother was on the other end of the spectrum. And Vibhishan, the younger of 4 children, had as his elder brother Ravana. He had a different name before it became Ravana, but he became Ravana by name. And Kumbhakarna, we're going to see some photographs or paintings of these personalities. And Shurpanakha, she played a very important role in Ramayana. She wanted to eat Sita. She wasn't a nice lady. So here's a painting that shows, in the upper portion of the painting, is Kaikashi coming at a time when Vishrava was doing his fire yagya. You can see on the left side his fire yagya. And he became annoyed by her coming at the wrong time and made that pronouncement that her children will be cruel and horrific demons. But then on appeal, that the youngest one would be perfectly virtuous, like her father, like his father. And so the bottom painting is towards the middle with the 10 heads and 20 arms. That fellow was Ravana. Really weird looking fellow. And behind him was the next son, Kumbhakarna. We'll see a picture of Kumbhakarna. It looks a little bit more like Kumbhakarna than that painting. And behind him is the daughter, and that's Shurpanakha. And then there's the mother with the little child in her lap, and the child in her lap, that's Vibhishan. So this is about Vibhishan's taking shelter of Ram. And all of the 3 men, that's Ravana and Kumbhakarna and Vibhishana, they underwent great austerities. And the austerity that Kumbhakarna underwent was he wanted sleep. So he slept so soundly that to wake him, look at what they did to wake him. Beating of drums and poking him with sticks and having elephants climb on his body and poking him with things, and he would still sleep. And they had lots of food waiting for him to eat when he woke up, and so that's Kumbhakarna. Ravana's austerity, I don't know what, their slide is missing. What happened? There's a slide missing. The slide that's missing is Ravana underwent austerities to rule the 3 worlds, meaning lower, this realm, and the heavenly realm. That's what he wanted. So he went on austerities for that reason, Kumbhakarna for his reasons, and Vibhishan, the 3rd brother, he underwent austerities to become a perfectly virtuous person. And the description of him, this is a little, his character, he was fully surrendered. So he's as we have in the Bhagavatam, we have the description of Bali Maharaj, who exemplifies surrendering everything to Vamanadev. So in Ramayana, Vibhishan is that same type of person, fully surrendered. He abandoned Lanka, his place where he was residing with his family members and his wife. Friends, possessions, I place my kingdom, life, and happiness at your disposal. These are his words in Ramayana to Ramachandra. And according to what we've been discussing, one of the most celebrated, or is not the most celebrated commentator on Ramayana is an acharya called Govindaraja. Govindaraja presented many things. One of them was 18 cardinal lessons of Ramayana. So that's our topic, is lessons of Ramayana. And one of them is Vibhisana, and that his dependency on the devotees of the Supreme. Now, some of you may not know who is Ranganath, the deity in South India. Do you have any idea who is Ranganath? No idea. Zero. Ranganath is a very celebrated deity. It's maybe the largest temple in the world. It's humongous, and they have a lot of visitors that come there. And the deity is similarly like, the deity is as big as this altar. The deity is humongous. And it's a form of Mahavishnu who is reclining. Literally, he's reclining. He's not standing. He's reclining on Anantashesh. It's Mahavishnu. Mahavishnu? A little bit? Okay. The deity is the deity of Mahavishnu. And the name of the deity is Sri Ranga Nath. Ranga means waves. So he's on the ocean of creation, the Karna ocean. And Natha means he's the Lord of. He's the Lord of the ocean, or Karna ocean, or the causal ocean. And he's a huge deity, a very celebrated deity. And here's a little history. The little history is this deity. Here's the deity. Whoops, excuse me. Here's the deity. There's the deity. And here he is lying down, very close-up picture of his front. There's the deity, huge deity. And then in front is the festival deity, Utsav Murti, and with Bu and Nila by either side. So when they have festivals, the deity stays reclining, and the Utsav Murti, the bathing of the deity and going on procession and many things. That's the deity that goes here and there for festivals. So this deity, the history of this deity is, the deity simply appeared to Lord Brahma at the beginning of this kalpa. Kalpa means the day of Brahma. Day of Brahma. In the course of Brahma's day, there's a lot of time between day and night. Anyway, each day, at the beginning of this day of Brahma, this particular day of Brahma, the deity appeared. And the deity was then worshipped in the same line of kings as Lord Ramachandra, that is, the son from Bhagavad Gita. In Bhagavad Gita, Krishna says, in the beginning, long ago I instructed this Bhagavad Gita to the sun god, Vibhisanaś to his son Manu, Manu to his son Ikshvaku. So the deity that Brahma manifested was given to Ikshvaku. And when Ikshvaku came to this earthly realm to rule in Ayodhya, because he was sent by his father Manu to rule the kingdom in Ayodhya, he brought with him this deity of Sri Ranga, or Ranganath. And down and down and down and down over the generations, the line of kings in that line in which Ramachandra appeared worshipped the deity. And then after defeating Ravana, Ramchandra went back to Ayodhya, Vibhishan went with him, and Lord Ramachandra wanted to say thanks. So he didn't just say thanks, he installed him as the next king of Ayodhya, and he gave some gifts. And one of the gifts that he gave to Vibhishan was this humongous deity. And somehow he was supposed to carry this humongous deity all the way back to Lanka. But as they were going on the way, he, the deity, decided that he wanted to remain in Srirangam. And he informed Vibhishan that I want to stay here, but instead of going with you, I'll just look in your direction, because normally it's not, Vastu says you don't have a deity looking south. But I'll look south, so I'll look upon your kingdom and you'll be protected. So that's how the deity of Srirangam got into Srirangam. Ranganath got there because Vibhishan brought him. So he's very dear to Vibhishan, as was Vibhishan very dear to Ramachandra. So there's the Ranganath deity, and a close-up of his reclining position. This deity of Sri Ranganath has a very celebrated part in the Divya 8 places of pilgrimage and worship for the Sri Vaishnavas. And first on the list of the 108 is Ranganath. Ranganath deity has great affection for Vibhishan. That's why we're hearing. Here's one, Priya Alvar. So, who are these Alvars? For those of you who are newer, they're previous personalities who were fully realized individuals, and these 12 made teachings that then were gathered and collected and assimilated by Ramanujacharya, who is the preceptor of that line of succession. But these 12 Alvars preceded him. And they, among other things, they had prayers that they offered to Ranganath and others. After removing the hurdles for Vibhishan, Sri Ranganath gave the kingdom to him. And lying at Sri Rangam, he, that's the deity, is looking at the way in which Vibhishan is ably ruling Lanka. This is similar to how a mother who is nursing her infant looks at the infant's cheerful face. It's a prayer by one of their principal alvars, or spiritual teachers. Another is King Kulashekar. Lying down, looking at the southern direction with affection, Sri Ranganath looks at the southern direction, which is the dwelling place of Vibhishana. So there's a strong connection between the deity, celebrated deity, and Vibhishan. Here's another. Tirumangala Alvar. This is a little longer. Sri Ranganath has special affection towards Vibhishan, who is blessed by realized wisdom. When Sugriva threatened to walk out with his army of monkeys should Sri Ram accept Vibhishan, Sri Ram said, "Even if I have to forego you, Sugriva, and your army, I will not let down Vibhishan." Unquote. This is similar to a cow. In order to protect its calf that it gave birth to that day, pushes aside the calf which is older, with its horns and hooves. When that Sugriva did something which could have resulted in harm to him, Sri Ram said, "Oh, Sugriva, with long arms, if something shameful had befallen you, what benefit would I get through Sita, or Bharata, or Lakshman, or Shatrughna? Oh, warrior who kills enemies, what benefit would I get out of my own body?" In other words, his affection with Sugriva was so elevated that he was more than his own wife and more than his own brothers. He had affection for Sugriva, but he would leave Sugriva in favor of Vibhishan. Nice. Such was Ram's affection towards Sugriva, but his affection for Vibhishan was greater than that which he had towards Sugriva. And hence, he is lying in Srirangam, looking in the direction of Vibhishan. So it's a nice glorification, but you take, who is it coming from? These three persons, Alvars, are the chief sources of knowledge for the whole Sampradaya. So Vibhishan is a special person for Ramachandra and for Ranganath. So here's a painting of how Dasagriva, Dasa means 10 and Griva means neck. So when he was born with 10 heads or 10 necks. So he got a nice name, Dasagriva. But Dasagriva was powerful and proud and challenging everybody left and right, and he made a mistake of challenging Lord Shiva. He went to the abode of Lord Shiva and tried to lift the whole of Mount Kailash. There's a whole story. And Parvati was concerned. What's that? He said, don't worry, it's just this Dasagriva fellow. So he just put his toe on Mount Kailash and it crushed the arms, the 20 arms of Dasagriva. And he just held his toe on top of the mountain. And he started wailing and crying, and because he was very skilled, he was able to play some musical instruments, and his musical instruments were so nice. So when he got benedictions from Lord Shiva, he forgave him and gave him some benedictions. But as he was roaring in pain at what Lord Shiva was doing, his name changed. Ravana. Roaring. So his austerities later, there was the slide I was looking for. He wanted the benediction of ruling over the three worlds. His next brother, Kumbhakarna, long austerities. He wanted sleep. When awake, he wandered over the universe devouring rishis. That was his fun. And Vibhishan, the third brother, wanted the benediction of always serving the Supreme Lord. He was quite of a different character than his two brothers. And the passages from Ramayana read like this. He stood on one foot for 5,000 years. When his vow was completed for yet another 5,000 years, he gazed steadily at the sun, standing with his arms raised above his head, and his mind fixed upon Vedic recitation, similar to, but certainly different from what Ravana did. Ravana did do Vedic recitations. And when benediction time came, this is what he wanted. May every thought that I may have in each and every stage of my life in this world be supremely righteous, and may I always uphold the righteous conduct appropriate to every stage. He was virtuous, and that was the benediction he wanted. He, Vibhishan pictured here, had 4 ministers, and these become important. The names are not so important, but the personalities are important because they accompany him when he left Ravana. He stayed with Ravana out of religious duty, but he abandoned him at some point when he became a disgrace to the virtue of their royal family. He had a wife, and the arrangement for his marriage to Sarama, who was a king of the Gandharvas, she was the daughter of the king of Gandharvas. This is described in Ramayana, she was born on the shore of Lake Manasa, during one rainy season. So her mother called out to Lake Manasa, Sara Ma. Ma means not. Do not flood. So that name stuck. Sarama. So those are the three brothers and their different dispositions. They were certainly capable of extreme austerities. And the painting here is meant to be a painting of the Pushpaka Vimana. Vimana means airplane. And Pushpaka means that this particular airplane was stolen from his stepbrother. The stepbrother was Kuvera. Remember his name? Two different mothers from one father. So his stepbrother, Kuvera, Ravana went and confronted Kuvera to do battle with Kuvera, his brother. And when he won the battle against Kuvera, he stole his Pushpaka Vimana. Now the Pushpaka Vimana was really cool. It didn't have a steering wheel, it just by mind, he could call the Vimana to come, and then he would mount the Vimana, and wherever his mind directed, the Vimana went. It was very interesting, mystical airplane. So he went here and there to conquer and do different things, Ravana, with his stolen airplane, the Pushpaka Vimana. And one of the things that he did, and there's a long description of the things that he did, is he was very lusty. And when he found a beautiful lady somewhere as he was flying around in his Pushpaka Vimana, he molested the woman and took him and put the woman in his Vimana and went with her back to Lanka. And he had a whole bunch of ladies, like a whole horde of kidnapped ladies that he kept as if they're his wife. And Vibhisanaś came to know about this. So he chastised his brother and said, this act of yours is very sinful and is unbecoming of our good family. Already as a reaction to your wickedness, your own aunt, Kumbhinashi, has been kidnapped by the Rakshasa Madhu. We heard about the Rakshasa Madhu and Madhu's kidnapping Kumbhinashi yesterday evening, because the son of Madhu became Lavanasura, and that's what we heard about yesterday. So Vibhisanaś, it was a well-known fact that this misfortune came as a result of your misdeeds. So not just Ravana was suffering the consequences of his misdeeds, but the whole family was sharing of the reaction of his misdeeds. So this is what we heard yesterday, but Kumbhinashi was an unmarried daughter of Malyavan. Who's Malyavan? Malyavan is the uncle of Ravana's mother. You saw at the beginning. Ravana's mother was Kaikashi. Ravana's father was a great sage. And the combination of the two produced Ravana. But there was a maternal, that's his mother's brother, so his maternal uncle, and that's Malyavan. And Malyavan was residing in Ravana's palace. So that the daughter, what he's saying is, your misdeeds are bringing ill consequences to our own family, what to speak of the whole world. So please desist. I found this nice painting, so I'll just share it with you. It's something about Vibhisana, not from Valmiki Ramayana, but from a different Ramayana, because there's multiple Ramayanas. This is a painting of Hanuman, pictured on the left, and a disguise as a Brahmana, because Hanuman has shape-changing powers, sometimes and sometimes. Like, for example, when Hanuman first met Ramachandra, he had assumed the disguise or the shape or the form of a Brahmana. So here he's taking the shape of a Brahmana and he's meeting Vibhisana. This happened, according to this particular Ramayana, it's just after his exchange with Sita, and then he was traveling throughout Lanka, looking for a way to give a signal to Ravana that he better behave properly and give Sita back. So in the course of that time, after meeting Sita, and before the rest of what he did with Lanka, according to this particular Ramayana, they met. And then after that, destroying the garden and defeating the soldiers, etc., etc. So here's a nice painting. When he started destroying the garden and making a big ruckus, then Ravana sent 7 generals to go stop him. And Hanuman finished them all, and after several generals and others, and finally they arrested him by some mystic power that Indrajit had. Indrajit is the name of one of the sons of Ravana. So there Hanuman allowed it because he wanted audience with Ravana to give Ravana the sauce. Give him the sauce is a phrase that Tamal Krishna Maharaj's disciples use. Many of you here know who is Tamal Krishna Maharaj, and if you don't, you're unfortunate. He had this nature that he trained his disciples very, very carefully, and one of the methods he used was giving him the sauce. And I heard the phrase, I attended one of his Vyasa Puja events in either Houston or Dallas, and each of the disciples that came up and spoke something about Tamal Krishna Maharaj, they all said the same thing, da-da-da-da-da-da-da, and then he gave me the sauce. Da-da-da-da-da-da-da, and then he gave me the sauce. And so it's like, okay, that was Tamal Krishna Maharaj's personality. He didn't always do that. He was very soft and very kind and very loving, but he was also very strict. And a person's crossed the line, he'd let them know. And then he gave me the sauce. And they knew it was loving. They didn't resent it. They didn't feel hurt by it because it was just his loving nature. No, not everybody would do like Tamal Krishna Maharaj would do. But he was prone to do like that. So here is a painting of Hanuman, who then assumed a much larger form, expanded his body, he broke the ropes with his power, there's other things said, and he then speaks intense message to Ravana, saying, that Vibhishan said it a little differently, he said it a little differently, you're a sinful, wicked man. If you don't want to bring destruction to your entire dynasty, my advice is give Sita back to Ram, or else. And strong. I mean, here he is, one person surrounded by millions of soldiers and a powerful Ravana, and saying really strong things, fearless. So they tried to capture him again. And Hanuman allowed it, because he's so powerful, he could have defeated them all right then and there. But then they decided, Ravana said, kill him. And Vibhishan said, it's against the law of Kshatriyas. If there's an emissary, he's done no harm to you, and the fact that he was destroying the garden and killed some of your generals, that was to teach you a lesson. So it wasn't, there's not, in other words, there's not cause to kill him. And there's an injunction for Kshatriyas, you can't kill an emissary. He just came with a message from Ram. He's just a message carrier. So you can't kill him. You can punish him, but you can't kill him. So Ravana accepted, because it was right. And then he decided, or it was decided, that monkeys are very fond of their tail. So take cloths, soak them in highly flammable material like oil, and then wrap his tail in the cloth and light it on fire. Ouch, because monkeys are very fond of their tail. So that's what they did, but that was a bad decision, because with his tail on fire, Hanuman went here and there. He broke free from their clutches and went here and there and burned the whole of Lanka. So after the whole of Lanka was burned, Hanuman returned, and then Ravana called an assembly of all of his ministers and chief warriors and wanted to ask them what to do. And Vibhishan, being always in keeping with righteousness, he spoke righteousness. He said, this happened to Lanka because of your sinfulness. So the right thing to do, you're asking, here's my advice, give Sita back. And Ram will accept, and everything will be made nice. And there was no way he was going to give Sita back. So he dismissed him. And then another time, he went to see Vibhishan. He had thought about what he had said, and he wanted to hear further, and Vibhishan said further. And he dismissed, he just got up and left, because he couldn't take it. You know, act virtuously, come on. That's not my lifestyle. So, a third time was when they were together in a royal assembly, and again there was some discussion what to do, because they didn't have an answer yet, so he's still pondering what to do. And Vibhishan stood up and spoke very strongly, and what to do, and to, saying what Ravana had done was most heinous. It will bring ruination to the whole of their clan, the Rakshasa clan, and do the right thing instead of continue with this wrong thing. Ravana came and kicked him in the chest, right in the public assembly, and said, if you weren't my brother, I would kill you right now. So with that, 3 strikes. So he left. Here's the painting of Vibhishan falling at his feet, respectful to his elder brother, which is he right there in that public assembly decided that's it. It's something similar to in Mahabharata when Vidura decided, being insulted by Duryodhana, there's no service for me here. So Vidura left. And similarly, Vibhishan just left. And when he left with 4 ministers. And the way he left was really interesting. He didn't get up and walk out. He just rose in the air. And the ministers rose in the air with him. And he went all the way across. I mean, it took Hanuman a giant leap to cross the ocean, but he just floated across the ocean with his mystic powers and came to the place where Ramachandra was. There's this is a nice ISKCON BBT painting. if you happen to visit the Delhi temple, you'll find this in their art museum at the Delhi temple, hanging on the wall. And this is a painting of that nice scene. So behind him, knows count 4, 1, 2, 3, 4. Those is his 4 ministers. And there's Ram, there's Lakshman by his side, and there's Sugriva and Hanuman. So who is Sugriva? Sugriva, we heard a little bit about Sugriva. He is a king, and he's very, very dear to Ramachandra. In that one of those prayers, he indicates how much dear Ramachandra held Sugriva. But Sugriva was mistrustful of the motives of Vibhishan. And he said many things. So what Ram did is what a good leader will do. Before just pronouncing a decision, he asked him, I want to hear your recommendation. Should, now it's a detail. It's an important detail. Vibhishan didn't request of Ram directly. He requested of one very dear to Ram, find out from Ram if he'll accept me. Because you don't approach Krishna or Ramachandra directly, but approach through representative of. So Sugriva was the one he made that request of. So Sugriva went back to Ramachandra and conveyed the message. Vibhishan wants surrender, and I don't think you should. And he gave his reasons, and they were very strong reasons. And he suspected his motives. He knows that Ravana is going to get whooped, and so he knows he's next in line to become the king. So he wants to become the next king. His motive is, I want to become the king. I don't trust him. A motivated, so-called surrendered person. That's not a surrendered person. And on and on. So different persons were consulted. And it came round 2 when Sugriva gave more objections, further objections. There in the background of the painting, in the upper right, you see you see Vibhishan and his 4 ministers. They're just still hovering in the air, waiting for a ruling from the king, from Lord Ramachandra. Until he was spoken to, Hanuman said nothing. And then Hanuman was asked by Ramachandra. And then Hanuman said, there's no question. Lord Ramachandra has already accepted him. Because it's his nature. You're talking about should he, shouldn't he. It's his nature. He's already accepted him. So there's a very important verse in this whole subject of Vibhishan surrender that's considered by Sri Vaishnavas who study and comment on Ramayana, that this is the Charama Shloka. It's like for us, the most important verse in the entire Bhagavad Gita is Sarva dharmam parityaja mamekam sharanam braja aham tvam sarva papebhyo mokshayashami ma suchaha. For those of you that are not familiar with Bhagavad Gita, you can look it up later if you want. It's chapter 18, the last chapter, text 66, and the message 1866 is take shelter of Krishna. All other principles of Dharma are subordinate to this one principle. The one principle is take shelter of Krishna. Mam ekam sharanam. If you remember the title, Vibhishan Saranagati, it's the same root, same Sanskrit root, dhatu, Sharana, Sharanagati. So take shelter of Lord Ramachandra. That's what he wants. So Hanuman's saying, Bhagavad Gita hadn't been spoken at that time. It was spoken previously to Ikshvaku. So he knew, because he was an educated person. Who was Hanuman's teacher? sun god, Suryadev. Sun god, huh? Let's do this. From Bhagavad Gita, chapter 4, Krishna said to Arjuna, long, long ago, I instructed this imperishable science to the sun god. Sun god became the teacher of Hanuman, so he knew. Not only he knew Bhagavad Gita, he knew everything, because he learned from the sun god. So I know Ramchandra has already accepted him. And then Ramchandra spoke after he appreciated Hanuman's wisdom and said of some incident far, far past where there was a dove that gave shelter to an eagle even after the eagle had killed the dove's wife. There's details, it's in Ramayana, but with that, Ramchandra then quoted the words of a sage, Kandu. So he's the Supreme Lord, but he's making reference to scripture and making reference to sadhu before he's going to pronounce his own decision. There was a son, Kandu had a son. No, excuse me. Kandu was the son of the sage Kanva, who is known to have spoken on the virtue of giving shelter to anyone who subordinates himself to a person who is capable of giving shelter. And there was also the demerit of not doing so, and therefore, according to Yuddhakanda, this is that section, these words were to appease Sugriva, who was objecting to Vibhisana's request. So in case you want to read more about it, you can read more about it from Yuddhakanda, chapter 19, Valmiki Ramayana. And he still had further doubts, poor Sugriva. He was like, he was interested in protecting. You know, okay, there's scripture, but there's protection too. So Ram then said, don't worry, if you have but worries that there's some risk that will come to me, let me disclose this fact to you. I have unlimited strength. Virya means power or might, and Shakti means potency. Unlimited strength and prowess. And then came his words of compassion, often quoted, celebrated section of Ramayana. It's referred to in our Chaitanya Charitamrita, but it's from Ramayana. It is my vow that if one only once seriously surrenders unto me, saying, my dear Lord, from this day I am yours, and prays to me for courage, I shall immediately award courage to that person, and he will always remain safe from that time on. That's a detail some of you know. In course of time, in the Sri Sampradaya, there were two opinions. It sometimes happens. And one opinion was, this means that Ram said just once. So Saranagati is a one-time deal. You just one time take full shelter, and that's it, bingo. And others say, no, it's surrender implies it's an ongoing surrender, and then ongoing shelter. So there are arguments on this side and arguments on that side, and eventually the Sri Sampradaya split into two philosophical positions. So it's good for us to be clear what the teachings are, so we don't have a split in philosophy. Fundamental. Now, how do you get shelter? Is it a one-time deal, or is it an ongoing process? This is called the Charama, or Charma Sloka, amongst Sri Vaishnava Acharyas. It's the highest teaching, just like the verse that we just recited from Bhagavad Gita, the concluding teaching of Krishna in Bhagavad Gita. There's many other super nice teachings, but it's one that's kind of the summary and conclusion of all the other nice teachings. It is my eternal principle that any living being takes shelter of me even once, saying, I am yours, then I award that person freedom from all fear. So don't worry about my safety, because that was Sugriva's second time around concern. And then Ram didn't personally invite. He asked Sugriva, the one whom Vibhishan initially approached, Sugriva, you go and invite Vibhishan to come. So Vibhishan came. There's his 4 ministers behind him. He takes shelter. And here's another painting. The 4 ministers are pictured behind him. And there's Vibhishan at Ramachandra's feet with Lakshman by his side. Some Vanaras watching as well. And what did Ramchandra do? Well, Ramchandra decided right then and there to anoint him as the next king of Ravana would be finished. So there needs to be a king. More teaching was each of the 4 ministers, 2 plus 2 makes 4. 2 of the ministers represent the qualifications of those who are giving shelter. And the one who's taking shelter, the Saranagati. And the first of these 2, this is nice teaching, it's good to remember. It's a Sri Vaishnava picture, but it's fine. We have a different picture of what taking shelter is. This is another way of looking at what taking shelter is. Akinchanatvam. Tvam means having the quality of, and akinchana means one who possesses nothing, which I view as my shelter. You can possess things, but they can also be taken. There's something that can't be taken, and that's what your shelter is. And then it says the same thing in reverse. Since I have nowhere else to go to take shelter, I repose my shelter-taking spirit in the Sharanya, that's Ram, or the place of shelter, the person giving me shelter. I have no other shelter, and I take full shelter. It's very similar to that celebrated verse, always remember Krishna, never forget Krishna, backwards and forwards. Smartavya satatam vishnur vismartavya najata chit. Nice teaching. Sarva vidhi, all vidhis or regulations, sarva vidhi nishedha short, etoyor eva kinkara. All other teachings are subordinate to one principle. The one principle is always remember Krishna, never forget Krishna. So this principle of taking shelter has, I have no other shelter, he is my only shelter. It's just another way of saying the same thing. Akinchana tvam and ananya gati. Tvam. Gati means destination or goal. And ananya means no other. I have no other goal, no other shelter. I have only one shelter. I possess nothing. That's my shelter. And then there's the person unto whom one is taking shelter. So how do you decide who is that Sharanya person, the person who you should take shelter of? So here's one, same as Ramachandra. He gives shelter to anyone without any consideration of who they are. So saralata, of direct meaning, is simplicity. But one who's simple, they don't discriminate. I'll give shelter to you and won't give shelter to the other one. It's a little bit like, it's not the same, but it's a little bit like Vishrava, when Kaikeyi came and stood there silently, knowing what she wanted, he didn't say no. because there's simplicity. Her motivation wasn't so great. The timing wasn't so great. That's okay. He accepted her. Simplicity. One who is worthy of taking shelter is one who gives shelter to anyone without considering their background. And then Shakti is, he already explained, Ramchandra explained, I have this Virya Shakti, don't worry about me, Sugriva. He has the Shakti that he can give that protection and shelter. That's the right place to take shelter, and Vishnu is that right place. So a little bit more on these simplicity qualities. Ram gives shelter to anyone without any consideration of who they are. He is approachable by all, irrespective of their background or mundane identity. And Prabhupada followed this principle. What's the background? That's not the issue. When there's sincerity and the desire to take shelter, he would give shelter. And then he would, by the scruff of the neck, sometimes pick people up and clean them up and make them fit and nice. I'm pausing because I don't know. There's a schedule, and it's nice to keep schedules. And I've already gone beyond my time, right? Yes? Huh? It's okay. Little Prabhupada story about Prabhupada's making people who are unqualified become qualified. Some while ago, listening to a room conversation between Yogi Bhajan and Prabhupada. Some of you may know who he is, or may at least have heard of Yogi Bhajan. And he was a celebrity, contemporary celebrity of Prabhupada from Sikh religion. And he happened to be in Hawaii. His home base, it turns out, was 2 blocks away from the ISKCON LA temple in Culver City. Prabhupada didn't know that, but Yogi Bhajan knew that. He knew who Prabhupada was, and he was inviting him to attend a spiritual conference without all the details. He was like really wanting Prabhupada to come. And Prabhupada was not so enthusiastic about the outcome and explained why. Because there has to be a center. If there isn't a center, the unity of all religions isn't going to happen. You can bring people together and blah, blah, and they go away and nothing really, there's no unity unless there's an agreed upon center. So in the course of that discussion, towards the end, Prabhupada asked him, where's your headquarters? And he said, 2 blocks from your temple. And Prabhupada said, where? In Culver City? And he said, yes. And he said, in fact, this is Yogi Bhajan to Prabhupada, I've gone to your temple many times. And I've gone to see how they use construction materials, because I'm building temples here and there. Yogi Bhajan was busy with that kind of thing. So I saw a lot of ingenuity, but I also saw a lot of waste. And Prabhupada chuckled. He said, they're expert at being wasteful. He said it 3 times. But, he was affectionate. And then Yogi Bhajan said, I noticed 2 things from visiting your temple, aside from wasteful and creative ways of using materials. I found that the character of the individuals in your temple is so nice. They were all very pleasant. They didn't know who I was, but they treated me very respectfully, and their dealings with one another was also very respectful. And he was complimenting Prabhupada. And he was complimenting Prabhupada because of his followers. And then the second thing he said is, I went into the gift shop to see what kind of gifts they sell to the people that come to your temple. And there was a young girl, she was probably a teenager, Yogi Bhajan said. And she was so sweet and so pleasant. And I complimented her, your quality is so nice. And she said, "Sir," she didn't know who I was, "Sir, we were dogs. And Prabhupada picked us up. And he gave us whatever it is that we have." And, she was like in tears, just meeting a person who she didn't even know who he was, but the love in her heart was so bursting forth. And no shyness about being very humble, and you could say realistic. We were dogs. And he picked us up. He gave us something so wonderful, so indebted. And that's the consequence of meeting a great person. I mean, even if they're giving you the sauce, or whatever it is, because the place is the place of love, and because that loving quality was being transferred. And that's what Ramchandra was doing here with Vibhishan. Now there's a number of slides. We're looking at half of slide 42, and it goes to slide 54. So I think I'm going to have to stop to reading so many nice texts. Here's what Ram said to Vibhishan. The seeker for refuge need not feel friendly towards the protector, nor express friendship in word or conduct. He need not be endowed with all the excellences that the doctrines of submission demand of the seeker. It is quite enough that the Saranagata, that's Vibhishan, should join his palms in prayer as a gesture of surrender. Grace descends on him at once, and all sorrow will fall away. Even if one does not join the palms in prayer, it is enough if one announces that one is helpless and needs help, or if one utters words that sound like a prayer. Even if these three elements are absent, turning in the direction of the Savior is enough. Even if the supplicant is our direct foe, we will not harm him. This is the speech that is taken directly from Ramayana. It's quite enough if the surrender of self is made to me but once. Even then it is not necessary to express it in words or by act. Submission with the mind will do. Let a man but think once, I am yours. Service to you is my sole reward. This prayer is enough. I shall then stand between him and any evil that threatens from any being. This is my pledge. Never in any circumstances to be broken. This gift of fearlessness I shall give to those who come with him, because he had 4 ministers. The one who seeks refuge in me. If Ravana himself were to come to me, and without restoring Sita, prays for my protection, I am prepared to grant it to him. If this is not Vibhishan, but Ravana in disguise, even then I would give him shelter. So it's like, wow. That's Vibhishan's Saranagati. And again, amongst the commentators on Ramayana, a very, very celebrated event. So here's a nice painting. There's Vibhishan with his ministers in the background on the left, far left side. And he is given shelter. There's more teachings, but I think I'm going to just fold up shop. What should I do? This is nice. Ram was the shelter of Jatayu, who was a bird. Guha, who was a forest-dwelling ruffian. Sugriva, who was a monkey. Jambavan, who was a bear, and a squirrel. So he doesn't have discrimination about who he gives shelter to. If they want shelter, he's ready. That's Saralata. And he has the power. When Vibhishan approached Ram, one of the things he said to Sugriva, let this Rakshasa be the most wicked, or let him be virtuous. Either way, what can he do to me? Do you think that he can do any harm to me, or to anyone that takes refuge in me, or to anyone that has taken refuge in such a devotee? I could destroy all the Rakshasas on earth, as well as all the Danavas, Yakshas, Pishachas, and all other creatures, merely with the tip of my little finger, if I so choose. I need no weapons. Even the other fingers need not help. Even of the little finger, the tip is enough. Why speak of these puny Rakshasas in Lanka? The thought of slaying them has not yet entered my mind. When it does, these Rakshasas will no more be seen. And he made reference to his killing of 14,000 Rakshasa warriors single-handedly in Janistan, and so forth and so on. In the painting, maybe you can notice by the branch of the tree, there's a cave up on the hillside. That's where Lakshman was protecting Sita, while Ram stood before 14,000 Rakshasas and let him have it and finished them all. 2 additional traits. This is the topic. Gratitude. Lord Ramachandra feels gratitude for even the minute service or feelings of love that we may have for him. He is the personification and shelter of Dharma. And the second trait, gratitude, and he's true to his word. Once he says, that's it. One can believe Lord Ram when he says that all one needs is to even have a faint degree of surrender to Lord Ram. Sita, I will let go of my life, you or even Lakshmana, but I will never let go of the oath that I've given to my devotees. That's in the forest, Aranyakanda. So there's Vibhishan taking shelter. On the lower part is he placing some sandalwood paste or some sacred items on his forehead. Here's he's performing Abhishek, coronating him as king, and he's now the king. We're almost done. I made it. So then Ramachandra asked Vibhishan, what's your recommendation, as if he didn't know, what's your recommendation to cross the ocean? And Vibhishan said, take the help of ocean personified. That's what this guy with the trident over there, that's a Greek mythology personality. But Samudra, or Varuna by name. And Ramchandra went to the beach. He fasted, this is from the Bhagavatam, he fasted for 3 days. And Samudra didn't come. So we had this discussion. Why didn't Samudra come? And here's the answer. Samudra didn't want to take a superior position. Ram is undergoing fasting and austerities to get service. So he did, that wasn't right. I can't be the superior and he's the subordinate. And then after he took the superior position, took his bow and arrow and, you better show up, Samudra, you're in big trouble. He immediately came with palms folded, yes, let me help you. What can I do? You help me make an arrangement to cross the ocean. And so he did. And that's the last slide. Vibhishan surrender. Now there's many things to say, more things to say about Vibhishan. Just a little note. In the past, I gave an extended seminar on personalities from Ramayana, and Vibhishan alone was an hour and a half times 3. So there's a lot more to say. So if you want to say something more about, you can, But I selected the topic of his surrender because it's such an important lesson of what's involved in surrender. It's something that involves every one of us, taking shelter of the representative and the object, ultimately, the Supreme Person. Let's see if there's some discussion. Nice to see so many people here. Thank you all for coming. Some from distant places, some from around the corner.
We have a microphone if somebody wants to ask questions.
The first question is always takes a little while. And then there's Paramakruna has.
Hare Krishna, Guru Maharaj, thank you so much. This is a wonderful flyby of all the qualities and of Vibhishan. Very, very touching. Maharaj, my question is, you mentioned those two differences of opinion in the Sri Sampradaya about one-time surrender and ongoing.
Yeah.
And then you mentioned those 4 beautiful characteristics.
Yes.
So please correct me, but it seems like those 4 were more on the one-time side, or
No.
are they generic to, they
Both.
apply to both?
They apply to both. Because, something that Prabhupada has taught us is submission can slacken, and when submission slackens, then what? Something else happens besides the internal potency. Maya immediately enters. You turn your back to the light or the sun, and you see shadow. But, so it applies intermittently. Someone can be more surrendered, sometime less surrendered another time, and so forth. Then there's protection, but the protection, is it a one-time protection? There's arguments that say it's one time. But the principles apply to whether it's ongoing or one time.
Thank you, Guru Maharaj.
Anyone else?
Hare Krishna Maharaj. So the same ocean guard encourages the Mainaka to raise to offer service to Hanuman when Hanuman is going to search for Sita in Lanka.
Yes, that was the question that came a few days ago.
Okay. So at this time he actually remains silent until Rama has to take his bow and arrow.
Well, let me all of this. There were 2 events chronologically. Hanuman made it across the ocean. Was created by Samudra, but it was an obstacle of gratitude. He wanted to express gratitude to an ancestor of Ramachandra, who Hanuman was in the service of, by helping the ocean personified. So he, Samudra by name, or Varuna also by name, he recognized Ram's greatness, not necessarily his divinity, but his greatness, and wanted to express his gratitude for some service that his ancestor had done. Then chronologically later, Samudra, Ramchandra's there fasting on the shore of the ocean at Vibhishan's advice to get help from Samudra. Okay. Interesting. Huh?
Sorry, there is a question behind the paper.
Okay, but can I just finish this? my train of thought went out the window. Let's see. Yeah. Because the second chronological circumstance was when Samudra, the same one who looked up to Ram, didn't want to be in the reverse role where Ram is looking up to him. So he is reluctant. But as soon as Ram took this superior position by bringing his bow and, you better come or else, then immediately he came. Now that's one explanation. And there's others. There's a Kumbha Ramayana explanation that Badri supplied, and so I won't go into that right now because it will get confusing. Does that answer your question? Okay, good. For our newer people, if all of this detail and names and yada 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 is too confusing, don't worry about it. Just try to appreciate the essence of the exchanges, and gradually, by hearing and hearing and hearing, gradually by hearing and hearing, then the picture starts to fill in and it starts to make more sense. So at least for the newer people, try to make a sense of the dynamics of interaction and values of being respectful. So in this particular case, Samudra didn't want to take the superior position because he was looking up to Ram. Why is he fasting? To get my assistance? So he was reluctant. But when Ram took the superior position, there he was. Is there some service for me? He was comfortable with that, and not so comfortable with the other position. That's the detail. Okay. Okay, there's the question on the back. How does the bhakti plant go to the other devotees from a devotee? Bhakti creeper, right? Did you write this or he wrote?
No, it was a question from our Jenny Pedro's daughter, Ovia. She's very small, so I don't know if she's...
It's unrelated to this discussion, this lecture series, but it's from the previous seminars. So she had this question and try to ask you directly. That's why she just wrote a... I'm sorry if it is not related to this.
But aside from the source, the question is, how does bhakti transfer from one bhakta to another not yet bhakta?
Yes.
That's the question.
Yes, Maharaj.
It's mystical. It's not like you physically pick up a plant, a bhakti creeper plant, and you go over to this other person and say, hey, would you like a bhakti creeper plant? It's really nice. And the person says, well, let me check it out. I'm not so sure. Let me find out a little bit about it. It's not quite like that. It's a Shakti, Bhakti Shakti. It's a transmission. Even if one, like this example, if one simply sees an elevated person who's Bhakti enriched, if they just see that person, or do a little service for that, even unknowingly do a little service for that person, or something, there's a transference of bhakti from because it's Shakti, potency. And it's transferred, they can amplify and amplify and amplify, depending upon the potency and the receiver. It's kind of like a signal. Your cell phone, sometimes there's a good signal, sometimes it's a bad signal. And the phone call might break because it's a bad signal. So how strong is the signal and how strong is the receiver of that signal? But the transfer is just, it's vibrational, or it's by Shakti, potency. So I'm looking at you, but someone else handed this. But you wrote this? Ah. Okay. The next question has nothing to do with our topic this evening, but it's a nice question, and I'll end with this. Why did Krishna not go back to Vrindavan? That's your question, right? Now, for those of you that don't know, at a certain point in Krishna's Leela or pastimes, he was taken from Vrindavan to go to Mathura. The arrangement was made by Kamsa in order to kill Krishna, but it backfired. Krishna killed him. And Krishna loved the residents of Vrindavan, and he knew that the residents of Vrindavan loved him, but he didn't go back. So why didn't he go back? There's two answers. One answer is, there are lots of demons out there, and they knew if Krishna went back, there would be a very clear indication that Krishna has a lot of affection for the residents of Vrindavan, and the demons would harass the residents of Vrindavan. So Krishna didn't go back, because he didn't want the residents of Vrindavan to be harassed. And he was waiting and waiting and waiting, killing demons and other things too. And when the last demon was finished, his name was Dantavakra. And when Dantavakra was killed, Krishna went back. Did you know that? Krishna went back. Krishna went back. And he stayed for 2 months, and they had wonderful pastimes together. And then Krishna made arrangements for the residents of Vrindavan to go back to their eternal abode, or to have their manifest presence be withdrawn, and they entered into an unmanifest state. There's details. So Krishna went back. But the reason he didn't go back right away is, I already mentioned. Not he was too busy, or he was insensitive and didn't care, and the heck with those residents of Vrindavan, too bad for them. That's not like it. He wanted to protect them. There were persons that would have harmed them until they were finished. So he finished them, then went back. You feel happy now? Oh, that's good. Just big smile. So let's end. Srila Prabhupada ki. Gauramanandi Hari Hari Bol.
Let's Romapada Maharaj ki jai. Let's appreciate Maharaj spending so much time with us to discuss such important instructions from the behavior and the mood of great devotees, like we see in the Ramayan and in Krishna Leela, with a loud Haribol. Haribol, Haribol, Haribol. Thank you very much.